Greetings, greetings, greetings. We are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Always appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening to replay. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Want to thank you all for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody listens live, listens in the replay. This is the vault, episode 483. Who's charging what for trust services? And this isn't an endorsement of anybody's company. It's actually the counter. So we're rather excited about this episode. This is actually one by demand. People have come through the vault for years. We have people try to do non-competes. And what do? They want to compete. We've done episodes on competition is sin. And we're here now. Who's charging what for trust services? This is one of those episodes you got to ask yourself, what is the marketplace out there, Trust Christian Vault? We see you guys out there. We want to know what the marketplace is like. And we're going to talk about that. So here we go. So we got on the line with Trustee recently. Trustee, quite a few assets. Quite a few. Over 5 million, actually. And this is just recent, just going over trustees that you don't hear on the public side coming out berating and talking about, oh, we went private through Trust Christian Vault. We learned how to learn. We went through trustee training. Huh? They went through trustee training. They got the first hand white glove service trustee training. That's where we are. When you have that type of asset base, you get the trustee training with the white glove service. We tell the trustee, well, who's charging what is the good old boys in a certain area that this trustee's in are charging $55K for a spendthrift trust and trust services. $55K. Don't come to them unless you have $55K. It's probably gotten cheaper because people are giving discounts nowadays, but pre-pandemic, $55K. Don't come. It doesn't matter what type of asset base you had. They were giving that away because that's what they were giving away. But his guys were getting $55K. You say, oh wow, yeah, that's for what we call spendthrift. You guys can look up the definition of it. That's not what we engage in with trustee trading, but those are things that are out here on the public side. People are out here using these things, and we hear about these things, and we say, okay, well, that's one. So that's one, spendthrift. You hear about many different ones. It's obviously going to be many different ones. This one company that we know, they're doing that for sure. They're saying they're bulletproof. That's the way it goes. We know some guys when we first got into the business, into the industry. When you say trustee training, they're not doing trustee training. They were doing trust services. See how we got the episode like that in this particular episode? Who's charging what for trust services? So we talked about the one company charging 55. Then we got another company out here that we saw in the early days. They were charging 50 flat, maybe 10,000, and then 50. And excuses, they were charging 30 flat, and then 10,000 if they wanted to break it up. When you say break it up, what were they offering? They were offering services for trust, different types of trust, and they literally were serving it up for a 30 stack, 30,000. Then they had 10,000. Some people say, "Oh, these numbers real." Hey, look, go out there and start fishing. Start seeing if the marketplace is who's charging what for trust services. We're going over prices right now because these are the things that people engage in these environments and they say, "Oh man, I want to get in here for the low." I want to get in here for generational wealth for $2,000. I want to get in generational wealth for $33,000. And then you got people saying, well, they're not going to set up contracts for you unless they're 30,000. People aren't going to set up contracts in certain sectors for 55,000. Some people say, oh, those numbers got to be that serious. See, we're talking about the services that we've seen and we can quote and we know the companies. We know the websites. We know what they're going to tell you after you go through the first, oh, we just want to know what your asset based question is, or they want to find out, do you have that 55? They want to find out, do you have the 10,000? Some people may say, oh, that's not a lot. That's not a big deal. It's nothing heavy. We got that. We saved up for it. We've had some savings. We were looking to go private. We were looking to make sure our family's in the right position at one point. So we've been saving up for this position. And people do come at it in that position. Then we get it where people, the trust services, they break it down even further. So some people say, "Oh man, why are you going lower then?" Because think about it. Out here or in the public market, if it varies, it's varying. It's not one cost. It's not, oh, well, the trust services should cost us, this flat fee. Sure, it should. So we're quoting what the flat fees are per these companies. And then if they talk to you about more services, whether it's management of the trust, things of that nature, they're going to have management fees. But trust services include management fees. We could say that. This isn't legal advice, financial advice. These are things you would ask yourself, ask people that are involved in this industry. So when we go over now, we see we got these guys. They newcomers to the street. They don't understand the space. We're sitting in a room with billionaires, and they're not thinking about $2,000. It's not to say they're wearing $2,000 shoes, but they're just not. That's not something that you want to be cheap on when it comes down to it. Oh, I want to be cheap on contracts. I want to be cheap on services that are going to be preserving generational wealth. These are the questions that people have to ask themselves. Are they going to be cheap on, quote unquote? Are they going to try to cut the corner? Are they going to try to get the shortcut? Are they going to try to get around paying the cost to be in the space and be in the environment? Is that the case? Hmm. Is that the case? Where people say, "Oh man, to get in that sector, it should be less than my liability's been for years." Really? Have you paid 100,000 in taxes? Have you paid 1 million in taxes? What do you think your family estate's going to cost to pass it along from one generation to the next? If they're taking 15%, if whether it's the state, whether it's the fed, whether it's the probate lawyer, whoever. Services in the the trust service industry, when you look across the board, if you see, will be a percentage. They're easily going to tax you for a management fee. Some people say, "Oh, the management fee is not much," but 2% is still something, and that's low. That's for the management side. What happens when they get? There's a lot of fees that this is where banks are in wealth management, asset management, trust services. Who's charging what though? We got these newcomers that come to the block. They're not insured. They're not in these environments. We literally seen somebody selling something for $700. I mean, does it get lower than that? For you to protect your family wealth, it's $700. You got access to the contracts, the information. With the information comes a culture. There's a culture with the information. Who's charging what for trust services when we look across the board, even when we see people out here doing trust services? Is there a culture that they're providing? Like trustee training at the vault? Or are they just providing trust services and that's what they do? They get you in and out of there. And some people come to the vault for years and they say, "Is that what we're going to get?" And we say, "We provide trustee training." And this is where people for years have maybe wondered, is that really the case? And it has to be that way because the ones that even enroll in trustee training will say, "Oh, I got trust services from this guy. Oh, I was going to get trust services from this guy and that guy. And I just didn't do it because they didn't sound credible or they didn't have the goods. We didn't know if they were going to deliver. And because it was a document, I wasn't going to be trained in it. I wasn't going to be trained with my family. My family wasn't going to be trained. So I don't know how it's going to be passed along from one generation to the next." Right. That's why they go through trustee training. Who's charging for trust? Who's charging what for trust services? That's an easy question with an easy answer. Everybody. Companies out here, nowadays are just, oh, and it's interesting because we knew that that was going to be an issue in the marketplace at one point where people were doing that, and it's like, well, if you do that, just know that you're acting as a lawyer. And we got to talk about those things because, we see the advertisements already. We see the advertisements and it's, oh, okay. The marketplace is, let's see who can undercut who the most. And when in all actuality, if we still look at the numbers, but we're gonna allow the numbers to grow, to allow the newcomers to come in for what you would consider a lower price and see what they make of it. Because it isn't necessarily the cost, it's the way people think of it. Some people say, oh man, well, who's charging what for trust services? Definitely what people think of it. What are they thinking of the cost? Oh man, this should cost me a little bit, or this is going to cost me something where I got to really know that this is something that's going to really help me protect my family and generations. I'm going to do this one time. And many of the people that come to the vault actually say that. They say, I haven't completed, I haven't finished anything, but I definitely want to do something so I can actually, what do they say? Just to make it a point so they can protect their family. We have quite a few families that we work with, even as of recent. Uh, just a family recently, family for sure, and, has children and everything. And, they say, hey, no, we need to protect our family. That's the bottom line. And it's not just about trust services, it's about trustee training. They have, it's a team, and so they're working together as a team, and that's important when you're talking about the family and people knowing things, possibly the same things and otherwise. Very important. Very important. We're just gonna go ahead and say who's charging what for trust services, and we talk about $700 to $55,000. This is a drastic difference, and then of course it could be a lot greater depending on the value of the person. So is it based off of your net worth? You could almost say that. A lot of times you can't say what is the price of it because people are actually basing it off people's net worth. But then we see people coming to space and they're undercutting the business and they don't understand that the business is based off of people's net worth. What are they protecting? You got to have something to protect. But oh no, no. People wanted to get into space and they didn't want to learn the information. And that's where trustee training has prevailed. It's Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, it's Christian at trustchristian.com. That's the email you can reach out to enroll in trustee training. We look forward to you all getting in trustee training. We actually have our next workshop coming up, most likely is what is that, July? So we'll have dates, but those are actually for our enrolled trustees, and then we open the door up sometimes to actually outside trustees. Even the last workshop that we had, we actually had a trustee that's third generation. We're proud to say that third generation SEC attorney, Olympian. I mean, we were able to have those people in our environment to talk to the trustees and connect and build those relationships, and that's what it's all about. So we look forward to hearing from you. Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com.